Hello everyone. We have with us, we could not get Vaibhav Gaggar physically. He was caught up in some work in Delhi, but he has been kind enough to share his thoughts over this virtual mode. So we have with him, we have him with us this morning. And Vaibhav, welcome. We were looking forward to having, but the next best thing, which is doing this virtual recording for the benefit of the audience, so you can at least share your quick thoughts before we move ahead with the rest of the panel.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you for this as well as the invitation. And I was, really looking forward to being there for the conference. Quite apart from, the fact that it's always fantastically hosted when you're there, but a lot of friends and colleagues who I haven't met in some time. And I think it's, at a critical juncture for the industry as well. So I'm sure there'll be lots of heated and interesting debates, which I would have loved to be a part of. But good luck to everyone.
Great. So, I mean, as an antitrust lawyer, someone who specializes in this field, the recent developments would have been quite interesting to see, with heavy penalties being imposed on Google in, I think, more than one case by the Competition Commission of India. And at the same time, there is debate going on with Google partially lifting its so-called stand or ban on real money gaming apps in India, allowing fantasy sports and rummy, only two categories of apps. Some of the apps are already live on the Play Store even as we speak. So how do you see these two developments, and what is your thought on it?
So I think it's been quite a, hard-hitting month as far as this is concerned, and especially Google. Obviously, Google plays a pivotal role in all gaming, in the life cycle of all gaming companies over here. And if you go through the fine print of these judgments, one, 900 plus crores has been imposed as penalty, and another, there's almost 1,300 crores which has been imposed as penalty. What is very important for the industry to understand is, and my takeaways really are two, three. One, for the longest time, people believe that a giant, whether it's Google or anyone else, is quite immune from a lot of laws, right? And these judgments actually bring forth the point that no one is going to be able to escape the arms of law, right? That should give a lot of confidence to the gaming companies, because there is clearly a pain point in terms of onboarding, as far as the Android platform is concerned. Their policies have been, they are discriminatory and quite often quite arbitrary, right? There's no logic to why they would allow a few, not allow a few, or for the longest time, they were not allowing any real money gaming app, whether they were, licensed, whether they were, under the judgments of the Supreme Court, or the High Courts, etc. So, that's a very important development that has happened. And you must also realize that quite apart from the penalties, the gaming companies are entitled to file for compensation and damages of any damage, because this relates back from 2011 till date. Please remember that, right? So if the gaming companies believe that due to the skewed policies of Google, these two judgments, they have been impacted negatively, then they have the right of actually now bringing about an individual and or a class action before the NCLAT and seek damages. Now that's something which, needs to be seriously explored if they are able to show actual damage that has happened because of anti-competitive activities. Just as an example, one of the things that's been found to be an offense by the CCI is that the 30% fee that was being charged, the fee that was being charged. Now, that can break, it's a backbreaker for a lot of companies, right? Whether big or small or whatever it is. And if they have suffered at the hands of that particular policy, then they may want to look into their accounts and see what they can do about it, right? I mean, that's a damage that is actually been caused, and they can go forth with it. Another example, they have found that there was discriminatory practice with respect to Google promoting their payment system only, right? Would not have a lot of other payment gateway availability. You would not have the UPI earlier as well. Now, that by itself, if the transaction fee is higher, because of the Google Pay, then that's something that is an immediate loss, which is accountable, right? So if you go through the judgment, you will see that there are multiple causes of action over there worth exploring. One, for damages. Two, with respect to a lot of companies still not being allowed to onboard, as you rightly pointed out. I mean, only Fantasy and Rummy have been allowed to be onboarded, which is great. At least it's a start, right? But what it shows to me is also that Google is now understanding that it cannot kind of just, look sideways with respect to the laws of the country. I mean, on what basis are they going to be deciding what is skill, what is chance, what is gambling, what is not? I mean, you've got to respect the law of the land, the Supreme Court, the high courts, legislations, regulatory mechanisms. When they call something a game of skill, that's got to be allowed to be onboarded. If you're not being onboarded on that, then the antitrust route is a really strong route to take, versus which some people have done. They've gone suits, they've tried to file writs, which is not really the issue here. It's a dominant entity which is doing a discriminatory and arbitrary practice, and you need to kind of evaluate now whether the CCI is the right route to kind of explore your remedies.
Right. And another thing is this issue will actually drag on. I mean, appeals and in the courts and so on. How do you see this playing on from now onwards?
I actually believe that the appeal would get decided rather quickly. So right now it's going to go to the NCLAT.
Right.
And I can tell you as a regular.
And from there it goes to Supreme Court?
To the Supreme Court. So it's
which would take its own sweet time, I believe, Supreme Court.
Supreme Court may or may not. Again, because, so two things. Let's look at the NCLAT, level first. For the longest time during COVID, things had really come to a grinding halt, right, in the NCLAT. But in the last 3 months, the NCLAT has disposed of more than 100 competition matters as appeals, right? And the benches which are there right now seem to be quite, adamant about disposing of matters. Therefore, I personally don't feel that this is going to be lingering too long in the NCLAT, whichever way it goes, right? That's not for me to comment.
So it won't be a long battle?
I don't think in the NCLAT, it's going to be a very long, drawn-out battle, quite frankly. And once it comes to the Supreme Court, I think the Supreme Court is also cognizant of the sensitivity of the issue that is involved here, right? They are grappling with a number of big tech company issues right now. They know that this is a global issue. And inevitably, when the Competition Commission is passing orders, these matters are being taken up, not always, but on priority by the Supreme Court as well. Because the CCI often goes with the Solicitor General of India or the Attorney General of India or the additional Solicitor General
officers,
the law officers, senior law officers. So there is a lot of weight which is attached to this. So I'll be disappointed if it is a very long, winding route ahead. And unless the judgment is stayed, Jay, this is important for you to know.
At the NCLT level, yeah.
At the NCLAT level or at the Supreme Court level, your compensation claims can still be sustained.
Right.
And plus, Google has, the way I understand, Google has already started putting in a bane some of their policies.
Yeah.
Right?
That I read.
I found that interesting.
So we'll have to see how it plays out. Of course, over the next, we hope the policies change and it becomes broad-based and, for the sector, the demands of the sector, including other games apart from Rummy and Fantasy, are acceded to. And, with these orders, although not directly on that point, hopefully Google will look at revamping its whole structure and
it will require a concerted effort by the industry, Jay.
Right.
It's not going to happen otherwise.
Right. So, one quick other point before we let you go, because we are also running short of time, because we are talking about, and there is a lot of talk about central regulation and, state level bans and so on. How do you see the regulatory landscape evolving, and do you see, finality coming at the central level, at the state level, etc., anytime soon?
So, Jay, only my very personal views, because as you're aware, I do represent the government.
Yes, we'll caveat it. This is purely at a personal, nothing to do with
right.
organization.
As I see it, I think the regulatory mechanism is going to get significantly clarified in a short span of time.
Right.
Okay. It will, of course, the constitutional issues, it being a state subject, etc. And the center is also grappling with what they can do about it. There have been a lot of stakeholder meetings, and there is a lot of deliberation that is happening. I think the agenda is very clear, which is to say that there needs to be clarity. There needs to be fail-safe mechanism over there. They don't want to promote gambling at all, but they understand the nuance of skill versus chance over here. They understand the legal landscape in that respect. And the intent is not to destroy the industry at all. That's my feeling looking at the way it's going. Of course, each state, we know a few states, especially down south, which are taking a hard line on this. But at the end of the day, the courts have come to the rescue each and every time, right?
Yes.
Whether it's Karnataka, whether it's Madras, whichever court it's going to is coming down and saying, sorry, you got to respect the judgments of the Supreme Court. Eventually, unfortunately, the way I look at it, the center state grappling will still continue for some time in this. And eventually it's going to be the Supreme Court which is going to step in, which will take time.
And the matters are already pending. Some matters are already
The matters are already pending. So if any one of them ripens and goes for a full-fledged argument, I think that could be the D-Day.
And that would center wait for that before taking a call, or what's your personal view on that?
I'm not privy to anything on this one, Jay, but I can tell you that my gut is that if the center was just going to simply stand and wait for it, then there wouldn't have been all these stakeholder meetings and this concerted effort to actually try and understand what's really going on in the domain, right? The two wouldn't add up in that case. I think my gut is that the government, that the center wants to resolve issues. I don't know which way they're going to go, what they're going to do, but I think they want clarity on this issue. It doesn't make any sense to let it.
So clarity is probably on the horizon in the near term.
Is my feeling. Yes.
Great. Thank you so much for your time. Next time we won't, we would want you physically to be
I would
there.
look forward to that, Jay.
And thank you once again for taking out the time. And we'll connect again. And the audience will also, those who want to connect with you can
absolutely
connect.
Look forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.